Welcome to Revelation BIB 406. This is lecture 18, and we are drawing quickly to a close. And this is the next to last chapter of the book of Revelation, Revelation chapter 21. This chapter describes the events that will take place after what is described as the Great White Throne Judgment. And the heaven and earth that has been prior to this chapter is destroyed. So let's take a look here. If you go to Revelation chapter 21, he says, I saw a new heaven and a new earth. John is writing this, of course. He says, for the first heaven and first earth were passed away, and there was no more sea. And I, John, saw the holy city, New Jerusalem, coming down from God out of heaven, prepared as a bride adorned for her husband. So the new heaven and new earth replace this old, the current earth and heaven that we are experiencing today. This chapter provides us with unique information concerning the final dwelling place for believers after the millennium. So there's unique information here that we find about that. Let's look at the individual verses here. Verse 1, we already read that, talks about this new heaven and new earth. Heaven is the term used in the Bible to describe the dwelling place of God. Psalm 33:13 describes that, as well as Matthew 14, or Matthew 6 rather, and Psalm 14. This is also the term used to describe the final resting place for the people of God. John 17 and 1 Thessalonians 4 give us that information that heaven will be this final dwelling place for God's people. The sea is no more. There have been various explanations given for this, but we don't have a lot of detail on it. But we could understand maybe that the sea represents judgment, the danger and trouble associated with the sea. So perhaps it's a way of describing the fact that in the new heaven and new earth there is no more judgment that is going to be taking place. And judgment has been a part of Revelation all the way until this point. And so this may be the way of describing that the judgment has ended. In terms of interpretation, we can know that any passage describing events related to the sea in the book of Revelation must be referring to events before the end of the millennium and not the new heavens and new earth. If there's a sea involved, whether it's talking about judgment or a literal sea, we know that it has to be before the millennium, because obviously if there's no more sea in the new heavens and new earth, then we're talking about something that occurred before those new heavens and new earth were created. All right, in verse 2, we have the holy city, the New Jerusalem. There's a connection there to prophecy given by Joel in Joel chapter 3, if you want to look at that verse. You can read through this statement by Paul E. Tan. Symbolically, New Jerusalem is crucial to at least three major cults: Christian Science, Mormonism, and Swedenborgians. Christian Science symbolizes almost every detail of the New Jerusalem in order to fit into the cult's teaching. Joseph Smith, the founder of Mormonism, attempted to establish the symbolized New Jerusalem in the state of Missouri. The Swedenborgians call themselves the Church of the New Jerusalem, and their founder, Swedenborg, he wrote voluminously in his commentary on the book of Revelation, states that by the 12,000 furlongs in Revelation 21 are signified all the goods and truths of the church. So the idea of the New Jerusalem has been a key teaching point in many cults, and there's been a lot of confusion around what the New Jerusalem is. But I think it's clear from verse 2 that this New Jerusalem is describing this rebuilt city in the new heavens and the new earth. In verse 3, the word tabernacle is used in the Old Testament and also in the Gospel of John. We find the entire location of heaven will be the Holy of Holies, and believers will have direct access to God and enjoy direct communication with Him. So you have this Old Testament symbolism of the tabernacle, the Holy of Holies. You couldn't go into it, and now you have the entire location of heaven that's described as the Holy of Holies. That's a pretty insightful truth there in verse 3. He says, I heard a great voice out of heaven saying, behold, the tabernacle of God is with men, and He will dwell with them. They shall be His people, and God Himself shall be with them and be their God. So you have this direct access to God which is just an amazing aspect of this new heavens and new earth. In verse 4, we have a description of life given in the new heaven. It says, God shall wipe away all tears from their eyes. There's no more death, no sorrow, no crying, no more pain. All of the former things are passed away. 1 John 2:15 through 17 gives similar information to how this new heavens and new earth, the life there, will be taking place. Verses 5 through 7, we have promises given to believers. It says, He that sat upon the throne said, Behold, I make all things new. These words are true and faithful. He said, it is done. I'm Alpha, Omega, the beginning and the end. I will give unto him that is athirst of the fountain of the water of life freely. He that overcometh shall inherit all things. I will be his God. He shall be my son. So we have this really a culmination of God's entire redemptive plan, the entire plan of history coming together here with this new heavens and new earth. And now we are living forever at peace with God as his sons and daughters. We also have a stern warning given in verse 8 to the ungodly. It says, But the fearful and unbelieving, the abominable, murderers, whoremongers, sorcerers, idolaters, all liars, they shall have their part in the lake which burneth with fire and brimstone, which is the second death. So a very clear warning given to those who are outside of the regenerated people of God. Verses 9 through 27 give us further information, further details on what this new Jerusalem looks like. He says, Come, I will show thee the bride, the Lamb's wife. So he carries them away to the great city that descends out of the heaven of God, and it begins to give this just beautiful description of what this new Jerusalem, this new heavens and new earth will look like. And all the way to verse 22, and then he says, I saw no temple therein, for the Lord God Almighty and the Lamb are the temple of it. And the city had no need of the sun, neither of the moon, for the glory of God did lighten it, and the land is the light thereof. So this is just a beautiful description. I would encourage you to read through these verses and just get a sense of the wonder and awe that John is experiencing here as he looks at this new Jerusalem.